Welcome to Cool Sentences, the podcast that brings you captivating short stories that will leave you imagining the impossible. Today's story is about the Dolphin Man. Imagine for a moment if you could morph into a dolphin, exploring the depths of the ocean and communicating with bigger creatures like orca killer whales. Well, that's what happens to Frank, who is a scientist trying to cure his wife's flesh-eating disease. Wow, sounds like a dream. This is exactly what happens when I eat pepperoni pizza before bed. Okay, stay tuned and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and sit back and enjoy Dolphin Man.
Dolphin Man by Derek Nyberg. How beautiful! How magnificent! I saw the orca whales breaching past the breakwater, 5 of them, with huge plumes of white water all around them. When in the circles of foam, a few sharper, more familiar fins appeared. But the whales took no notice of me and my new friends, and suddenly submerged into the depths. I turned toward the west, swimming away from the pod, so I could escape the bow of an oncoming ship. When one of the fins reappeared, I heard clicking sounds. I listened, and then I woke up to the smell of breakfast, and my wife of 30 years, Sheila, standing over the trusty stove. She looked back at me.
Who are you channeling this time? John Lennon? Gandhi?
I shook my head. You see, I knew she was trying to be patient, all things considered. Last August, a tiny cherry-coloured scab on Sheila's foot developed into a flesh-eating disease of sorts, and I realised I'd have to invent a cure myself, on my own time. So as Sheila put on the ham and eggs, I found myself in the bathroom staring at the mirror, checking for clues. What the hell? Something was weird with my eyes. They seemed slightly bigger than usual.
Okay, come and eat.
You got anything salty? I asked. Sheila just stared off into space. She said nothing, and the kitchen was quiet. Later that day, I was back at the beach with water up to my waist. Sheila appeared.
What are you doing, Frank?
What do you mean?
Isn't it a little cold?
No.
You're weirding me out, Frank. Could you get out of the water?
Well, I don't see what the fuss is about. I turned my back on her. Not that I was being rude, but about 100 metres out, more fins were circling, as if they were waiting. I wanted to turn around and tell her the hours in the lab paid off, tell her the drug worked. But the orcas attracted my attention, and so I stood there on the edge, just about to join them.
Frank!
The intensity in her voice broke my concentration.
You'll need these.
I looked back. Sheila was holding up a pair of house keys.
Look, I don't have time for this, Frank. I gotta get Fritzy back from the vet. Why don't you come home? I'm freezing.
Over dinner, we didn't say a word. Nothing was mentioned about me behaviour at the beach. Sheila stood up, and I could see the scab on her foot had spread to her ankle. Suddenly, Sheila was in my head.
You were talking in your sleep.
Her eyes were like a radar observatory, searching an empty galaxy.
So, tell me about your laboratory.
My carrots slid like sardines down my throat. Finally, I thought she wanted to talk about my experiments. I choked out an answer. I go there while you sleep.
I see.
No one knows, I said with a sudden feeling of guilt. But I've developed something for your foot.
I see.
And anyhow, the good news is, the preliminary trials are going well. Sheila smiled a sorry smile, the kind of smile you'd wear if everyone's house burned down but yours. That night, her snores echoed around the bedroom. My cat, Fritzy, was roaming the hallway toward the kitchen. I got out of my bed covers and followed her. Fritzy marched straight toward the fridge. Always hungry, Fritzy, eh? I picked her up and gave her belly a pat. Maybe someday I'll invent a language drug so we can have a real chat, Fritzy. What do you say? Fritzy meowed and jumped to the floor. Then something scared the bejesus out of me. Sheila appeared like an apparition from a darkened hallway.
What drug?
I wheeled about. Drug, I said.
You said something to Fritzy about a drug.
Nothing to worry about, love. But I'm hoping we'll finally get that foot looked after.
Well, that's good.
Yes, my love. Cup of milk. After Sheila downed her glass, she looked at me. I could tell she wanted to talk.
You know, Frank, I've been having the strangest dreams.
Really?
Yes, don't laugh, but I dreamt you were...
The chuckle couldn't restrain itself. In fact, it crept out of her mouth and danced to the tip of her cheekbones.
Frank!
When Sheila's smile turned upwards, for a slight instant, she looked like the American dolphin, Flipper.
I dreamt you were a dolphin. Oh my. And so was I. It was so strange and vivid, yet somehow it was sweet, like everything was peaceful and blue and you were so happy.
Sheila stood up and put her empty glass in the sink.
What do you think it means?
It was then I knew I had to tell her everything. Of course, over the years, Sheila, being a natural-born skeptic, had never quite understood what I was capable of. But maybe this time she would come around. I added something to your morning medication, I confessed.
What?
It's not dangerous, nothing to worry about.
Dangerous? What the hell are you talking about, Frank?
She had pulled up a chair and grabbed my wrist.
What is going on with you?
I started slowly. This dream you had, were you underwater? Sheila's trembling lips and thoughtful eyebrows didn't know what to do with each other. I told her everything about the dolphin pills. After I had explained the pre-pills and the post-pills and how morphing into our mammal cousins was the only way to cure her foot, Sheila did come around. And thanks to my prescriptions, that night we both dreamt we were dolphins. But that, of course, was only stage 1. Stage 2 came the next day. When the dim morning sun broke the clouds behind our house, both of us were giddy with excitement. We rose immediately. After a brisk 3-minute walk, we were standing on the beach staring at the horizon. We had taken a double dose just to be sure. This time would be for real. We weren't dreaming. The waves lapped and licked our feet, then bubbled against our chests. We edged into the frigid water. Deeper and deeper we went in, step by step, until the waves reached our chins. Sheila shouted,
I've always trusted you, Frank!
Just wait for the pills to take effect, I said. And then came a sensation of blood bursting in our brains, and with a sudden crash of white foam, we were under. At first, we were floating under the waves like ragdolls, but soon we were in control of our new bodies, swimming over the seafloor like alien invaders, gliding toward a towering garden of seaweed. I'd never seen Sheila look so happy. She let go of me fin and went to an old shipwreck laying on the ocean floor 60 feet away. Behind a sunken ship, I saw those familiar dark figures, our distant brothers and sisters from the evolutionary food chain. The orca whales from pod 579. We heard clicks, squeals and blips, and using our senses of echolocation, we followed their black and white forms toward a dark curtain. The pod kept well ahead, and by their constant clicking, it seemed like they were well aware of who we were. Why don't they communicate? I asked myself. Just before turning into a deeper shade of water, the mother orca glanced over. Her dark, glassy eye reflected an emotion, the one every creature understands: fear. She led her pod away, leaving Sheila and I alone in that enchanting but dangerous world. Sheila swam closer, and with the pull of a new current, we reversed direction and let the current pull us back to where we had come. Behind us, the blue curtain closed. Minutes later, Sheila ran out of the waves and turned to face me. I stumbled over the surf, and as I wrestled against the waves, Sheila's face had become angelic, as if, indeed, I was the Almighty coming down from the clouds. Sheila reached out her hand to help me.
That was simply amazing, Frank. When are these dolphin pills going to be on the market?
I looked down and her foot was back to normal. The healing process had worked. But sadly, I could tell Sheila had more than her medical miracle going around her brain.
My God, Frank, we're going to be rich.
We turned and looked back at the frothing sea.
I felt like I was one of them.
With those words, Sheila's eyes twinkled, and a golden twinkle it was.
So many people are going to want to try this. I mean, Frank, what are you going to do? Does the lab know what you've done?
I suppose that was the moment everything changed. I supposed curing a flesh-eating disease wasn't enough. I had taken great pride in developing my pills, but if Sheila had her way, they'd be used for entertainment. But then I saw Sheila's enthusiasm, and the way she looked at me with fresh eyes. Could this be a new beginning for us? From now on? I'm glad I shared this with you, I said.
Was I the first?
Yes.
I love you, Frank.
Sheila wanted to get back to the house, but I hesitated. If we walked back to our little house on the beach, a house that hadn't seen a new coat of paint in 30 years, I knew the dolphin pills would change our lives completely.
Can I ask, Frank, how many of these pills do you have? I suppose your lab could produce quite a bit.
Of course there was money to be made. I suppose that's understandable. Yet, part of me, the scientist part, felt responsible. And in spite of curing Sheila's disease by morphing her human body temporarily, thus ejecting the flesh-eating bacteria, I was starting to think outside the box of humanity. What would those marine creatures think about humans having the ability to emulate them? Certainly the orcas avoided us at every turn. And if a human dolphin ever got eaten by a hungry orca, certainly there would be serious litigation over at O'Malley's courthouse. Meanwhile, Sheila was over the moon.
It's so fantastic, Frank. Can we change into orcas too? Or just dolphins?
Then the deeper questions came flooding in. Have we gone too far? What right do we humans have? I asked myself. A sudden cruel breeze was picking up the bits of sand and tossing it in my face. Here too, I felt as if Mother Nature herself was telling me to cease and desist. I couldn't help but wonder, did Oppenheimer have sand thrown in his face by Mother Nature? Sheila became insistent.
Come on, Frank. I want to tell my mum. Let's go in. Cup of tea? You can call your assistants at the lab.
Sheila saw the dolphin pills in my palm. They were changing colours back and forth, from red to blue. That's all there is, I said with a hush. These are the only dolphin pills in existence. Around us, it seemed as if the whole day had come to a stop.
I, for one, am so very impressed, Frank. You are a brilliant scientist. Simply brilliant. Come on now, let's...
Sheila couldn't have seen it coming, nor did I. But like the sand being blown backwards by a no-one rush of breeze, I found myself racing away, running like a man possessed. And I was. Possessed with the knowledge that I'd held the power to change everything. And so I ran back to the breaking of the surf. When Sheila realised what I was about to do, she gave chase. Her sudden scream became a high-pitched plea for understanding.
Oh no, no, no!
She wailed in protest. But she was too late. Standing at the water's edge, with the wind howling through the surf, I tossed a whole handful of dolphin pills into the sea. The only ones in existence, gone. We could have ended it there, Sheila and I. Exhausted and teary-eyed, we had both sunk to our knees, knowing our marriage was broken. In spite of her recovery from the flesh-eating disease, her tears flowed, and she went on and on about the dreams that could have been. I sat on the sand in silence, knowing that somehow I had gone against the most basic need of human condition, the desire to reach to the stars. Or in this case, becoming more than we are. But sitting there as the surf roared like a lion, I thought a lot about dreams, big dreams, and the dreams that were too big to scale. And no matter how great those dreams are, perhaps it's for the better that on some days, like the day Sheila and I became dolphins, some dreams should be left alone.
You're listening to Cool Sentences, a fiction podcast written and produced by Derek Nyberg. Special thanks to John Bell, who played Frank, and Millie Keil, who played Sheila. Special effects by John Bell. Music by Derek Nyberg. And I'm your host, Vlado Forgac. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.